Yo, what is going on, everyone? I'm Marcus. Over here, we talk attorney reactions, finance content, uh, a, a, a gumbo of if you will, of content is what you're going to get over here. As always, I'm gonna toss the disclaimer out. I am a licensed attorney, but I'm not your attorney, so not legal or financial advice. Just me giving my opinions on takes and topics and current events. Hold on, I gotta close this door. This dog is annoying me with his. Ah, he just want to keep coming in here with that damn squeak toy, driving me crazy. All right, now this video is going to be. Yesterday we kind of went through the indictment and the detention letter, and kind of read everything, talked about it a little bit. But this video is going to be a real life critique of what went on today at the bond hearing. He had another bond hearing. This one was in front of Judge Carter, a district court judge. The one yesterday was in front of a magistrate court judge. And so we're going to talk about that. Now, I'd like to start this video out by saying that in no way, shape, or form am I saying that Diddy's lawyer is trash. Okay. I'm sure he's been in the game longer than me. I actually looked up his bio. He did a lot of work in pharma, which is interesting. I did a lot of work in pharma, but he been in the game for a minute, so I'm in no way saying that his lawyer is trash. What I am saying though is there were some crucial mistakes that I think were made during this bond hearing that should have been avoided. Now, hindsight is 2020. I'm sure when I do my thing, other attorneys look and be like, "Damn, dude, fucked up." So it happens. So hey, no shade to you, counselor. We're just gonna we're just gonna go ahead and talk about what mistakes were made. Yeah, Diddy's got to take that, definitely. We're gonna talk about what mistakes were made. Y'all let me know, and if y'all think y'all know any mistakes that were made during this bond hearing from anything you read, y'all let me know in the comments. Oh, and before we get started, if you get some value out of this content, entertainment, anything, make sure just hit the like button, subscribe, share, comment, like, dislike, all of that good stuff. And hey, shout out to the first comment of the day. Always appreciative of people who interact with the channel. So shout out and thank you, Pretty Eyes Covington, for tuning in. I appreciate that. Now, let's dive into it. Okay. So yesterday, and I actually took notes. You see, your boy got off work late and took notes. Yesterday, the magistrate court judge was Judge Tarnofsky. Today, it was Judge Carter. In district court, they heard a de novo review to try to appeal the bond or the lack of a bond that was put when Diddy was ultimately told yesterday he had to remain in custody. A de novo review just means that we're going to hear what they decided yesterday and treat it as if it's the first time, not taking anything into consideration what was said yesterday. Let me see. So yet and still, this mess proves that it may be years for the feds to show up at Tiffany and Cabal's hideout while they were screwing the top of the cash. I agree. I would be actually shook too. Can we have a moment of silence for the safety of all those in custody? Hey, shout out to everybody. So at today's bond hearing in front of Judge Carter, essentially what Diddy's team asked for, and your boy took notes because I didn't want to miss out on anything. They told the judge that Diddy would be confined to a property in New York. He turned over his passport and a total of 5 passports of his closest family members, to include his older kids. GPS monitoring. I'm gonna say one for last. A visitor log so they can track all of the comings and goings. No access to cell phone or internet. He noted that again he was not a flight risk because he's turning over his passport as well as those of his family member, and he also submitted to the court a letter of intent which purports that he is looking to sell his airplane. So that's essentially what he said. This last one is the most important, is what we're gonna dive into. But before we dive in, let's pivot a little bit and talk about Pablo Escobar. Because soon as I saw this, if y'all don't know, I'm a historian. I like ancient Rome history, Marcus Aurelius, Nero, Caligula. I love cartel stuff. Like I love that stuff. I love history. And so I'm very familiar with Pablo Escobar, DEA agent Kiki Camarena, and the Guadalajara cartel. I know all of that shit. Los Chapitos, you name it, I know it. And so soon as I read this next point that they argue, I immediately thought of Pablo Escobar. Y'all like, why would you think of Pablo Escobar at Diddy's bail hearing? So I wanted to pull this up. Do y'all know what the cathedral is? The cathedral as it relates to Pablo Escobar, or La Catedral. My habla español. All right, but do y'all know what that is? I'm gonna pull up this article real quick. Diddy lawyers getting the side eye. So let me pull up what it is so y'all can know. Now, back in the day, Pablo Escobar was first arrested in Colombia. One of the things that he fought vehemently, he didn't want extradition to the United States. He was like, yo, do what y'all want with me in Colombia, but don't send me to the United States. And Colombia said, okay, we're not going to send you to the US. And Pablo was like, yo, I'm going to turn myself in, but give me like 9 months before I turn myself in because I want to build my own prison. Okay, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to supply the guards. I'm going to do everything. Y'all just give me some time to turn myself in, and I'm going to be held in custody in my own prison. And it says Pablo's prison, it says La Catedral, inside the luxurious prison Colombia allowed Pablo Escobar to make for himself. The fortress was specifically constructed on a foggy mountainside to keep Escobar's enemies out and not the cocaine kingpin in. When the drug lord and king of coke Pablo Escobar agreed to a prison sentence in Colombia, he did so on his own terms. He constructed a jail so lavish it was referred to as Hotel Escobar or Club Medellin. Both, it said, but the enduring name has been La Catedral, or the cathedral, and with good reason. The prison featured football fields, jacuzzi, waterfalls. Indeed, the cathedral was more of a fortress than a prison, as Escobar effectively kept his enemies out rather than lock himself up continuously. So I bring that up to say that this next point is mistake number one, and probably the biggest mistake of the day. This is the biggest mistake. Pablo wanted to build his own prison. As soon as I heard this, I said, what does this dude think? Yeah, this is America, bro. This ain't Colombia or Mexico or something. Diddy's attorneys presented to the court that they were hiring a company known as Sage Intelligence, and Sage Intelligence would provide 24/7 security to include 24/7 video monitoring of Diddy. Now, why is that dumb? We're going to talk about why the hell that is dumb in a minute. Let's see. Yeah, built his own prison, didn't he? Yep. The Escobar prison he built for himself. And essentially, Diddy tried to they have hippo problems to this day because of Pablo. Yeah, he fucked their whole environmental ecosystem up. Now, what his team did was creative, but it was dumb in my opinion. Okay. One, his team tried to address the concerns that the court articulated that they had yesterday. Most importantly, was contact with witnesses. Courts did not want you interfering with evidence and contacting witness. Okay. And so he hired the company, but the issue is the company works for him. So what is the, I mean, this guy's historically known for using his money to manipulate systems and buy things to his advantage. What kind of sense would it make to say, hey, I'm gonna stay in my own mansion in New York and I'm gonna hire a private security company and they're gonna watch me and make sure I don't got no phone, no internet. They're gonna have a visitor's log. Like there is absolutely no way. And Sage Intelligence, I believe it is, it's all made up of former law enforcement, DEA, FBI. But the problem is, bro, we can't evaluate their checks and balances to make sure that they're doing exactly what they should be doing as you created your own conditions. That's actually the worst thing you can say. I think that's the worst thing you can say. I think that was the worst idea. I think they would have been better off saying that, hey, he bought a 2,000 square foot townhome in Manhattan, and he's going to have 2 security officers there, and they're just going to watch him and do all this stuff, and he's going to have ankle monitoring and have to go through the normal pretrial services that everybody else. That actually would have been a better argument than essentially going for the Pablo Escobar. I'm going to allow myself to be a prisoner in my own mansion under my own terms with my own surveillance and security mechanism. That's an actual batshit crazy argument, in my personal opinion. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think his assets would be frozen because normally assets are frozen when there is criminal conduct associated with getting assets in an illegal manner. I think everyone would agree that Diddy probably got his money legitimately. Now, what he did with his legitimate money is a whole different ball game. But I don't think these charges are indicative of freezing assets because it's not a monetary crime of theft, embezzlement, grand larceny. It's not like he's a drug kingpin and he could acquire all of his wealth from burning the block down, what I mean, or something like that. Yeah, Puffy pulled the Escobar move. Puff had or has money like many black folk, but we ain't got no power, so Puff played himself. I agree completely. Yeah, I'm hoping Diddy and Tiffany Henry hook up. Oh, she gonna finesse him. Yeah, they are former law enforcement. They are trustworthy. That actually made me laugh because current law enforcement in many instances aren't trustworthy. Good evening, Mr. DFD. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? I appreciate you tuning in. All right, so let's go down this list of creative but dumb. Okay, so one, the attorneys tried to address the concerns that the court had, specifically with interacting with witness and witness tampering. Nobody wants to deal with that. He hired a company to be his private security. This isn't Guadalajara. This isn't Mexico or some third world country. You can't turn your own luxury estate into a prison. You are not Pablo Escobar. Okay, now they were trying to eliminate all of the court's concerns, but the problem is it's a terrible argument to try to make a rich person exception to the law. There is no rich person exception to bonds being established or to pretrial services. Everybody goes through the same pretrial services. You go to the pretrial services, they charge you to be on ankle monitor. You got to pay to be on pretrial services. That's wild. But you get a probation officer, ankle monitoring, phone calls every hour, whatever it is. But there's no rich person exception to say, hey, I'm wealthy, so my pretrial services should be better than y'all broke ass people pretrial services. That's crazy. And who would want to be the judge to give in to those dumbass demands? You're actually going to make yourself look like a goofy. It's actually an offense that should bring you up to the Judiciary Committee, and you should probably be removed for the bench if you would have went with that. All right. Now, contacting witnesses, generally, if he was to get a bond and have some type of pretrial release, contacting witnesses would get you hemmed up absolutely immediately. And we've actually seen this. I don't know. I've covered this case maybe about a year ago, but essentially it was, I can't even think of the name of that company, but it was Sam Bankman-Fried with the crypto scam. Sam Bankman-Fried actually had pretrial release, and then they ended up locking his ass back up because he was contacting persons who were witnesses in his actual upcoming trial. So we've seen that before. If you do get pretrial release, you would actually rather be better off pissing hot on the piss test than trying to contact witnesses. That's actually crazy. Okay, let me see. The other thing that was stupid, I thought, to argue, because his team said, hey, Mr. Combs was aware of the investigation and the indictment very early on. Once the civil charges came into fruition, we kind of knew that a federal investigation was probably going on. But the other thing that I thought was a mistake, well, if you're saying that we were aware of a federal investigation because of the civil matters that were bubbling up, that actually would have given you time to get all of the illegal shit out of the house. You could have kept the baby oil and the lube, but the guns with the serial numbers filed off, the drugs and all of that stuff, all of that shit should have been completely out of your house. So I thought that was a mistake to bring that up. Also, let's see. It says since January 2024, again, since January of 2024, the defendant was aware of the investigation, but he continued to have his FOs, his freak off sessions. He continued to engage in trafficking behavior, and he continued to contact witnesses. Again, he's aware of this investigation, but he's still doing all of the activities that he is actually indicted for. Let's see. Typically, okay, all right. I talked about Sam Bankman-Fried. Okay, so now the judge did ask some questions. I looked up because they didn't have no video footage. We need to get a camera in there. But the judge actually did ask some questions. Not the baby oil stuff. Hey, we got to touch on that. Hey, is a thing, right? But the judge did ask some questions, and this is how you knew early on the shit was gonna go downhill because reporters were inside. So I was like, I wanted to know what the judge was asking. And one of the very first questions he asked, I've been a defense attorney, and I had a judge who was a dick. I ain't gonna say they was dick, but yeah, they were probably dicks. But the first one of the first questions the judge asked when the defense was going, the judge asked the defense to get to the point. that's a that's an actual sign that your client is about to get nothing that he's going to ask for. So now it's your job as an attorney, as a defense attorney in this situation. Like, this judge already gave me the indication that I'm not getting shit. Now I gotta lay it on thick to give my clients all of the smoke and the mirrors, and I gotta perform. So at least he feels like I got everything that he wanted me to say out that could potentially be favorable to him getting a bond. Okay, the next question was, and this was a good question. We talked about it earlier. If Combs was aware of the charges in April, why did he continue to contact witnesses? Another question he asked, he said, under your plan, would Mr. Combs have employees? And defense said, yes, they handle his finances and are in California. Then the judge asked, is the security in the house? And they said, yes, this Sage Incorporated or whatever they are, they would be in the house. They would have alternating shifts along with 24-hour surveillance monitor. Now, at this point, I think the judge realized he probably got a little bit too snappy. So he's like, hey, I'm going to ask him questions so he can explain himself as if he thinks I'm about to give him something. When in actuality, he's not going to get shit. Okay. Let's see. I guess the judge may have seen the hotel video of Diddy and Cassie and made sure that his bond would be denied because of what happened there. Man, bro, are you can you see my notes? Do I got them up or something to screen? Hey, you are literally, my next note is the judge referenced the hotel video. Literally, no cap. The next note that I have up here is the judge referenced the hotel video, and I kind of actually pulled the dialogue out. The judge stated the video is troubling. He is 40-something years old. The defense said, Your Honor, he has a problem with drugs. He went to rehab. They loved each other. They would bring in a third person on occasion, but they chose that. The judge, well, let me get through this soliloquy. Your Honor, they brought in a third party. They loved each other. They loved the drugs. They chose that. The judge's response was, what does love have to do with him dragging her down the hall and punching her? What love has to do with it? The attorney stated that, Your Honor, that was from an incident of jealousy and infidelity that had occurred within the relationship. And the judge's response was, what's your point? This is probably this is probably the second biggest mistake. Trying to essentially have your client build his own prison into his luxury home is stupid. But the second biggest mistake, and they actually made this mistake yesterday at the bond hearing, when you have a client who is charged with these types of acts, and there's a video out there of him actually whipping a woman's ass, which is egregious, which is monstrous. We all concede and know that. You cannot say anything that's fucking victim blaming. Come on, bro. What? They made the same argument yesterday, which was a terrible argument. Then they doubled down on it today, like, oh, they were loves, they chose drugs, and all of this and all of that. That's an actual terrible argument, because if I were the prosecution, I would say, well, Your Honor, he's saying that they chose it. We're saying that she was young, impressionable. He was very much more older than her. He was in a position of power, an imbalance of power into that relationship, because not only was he older than her, he was her senior, but he was also the person manipulating her music career, as identified by this bullshit contract of like 10 years where she get 2%. Like, the prosecution could have fucking eviscerated him on that, which they didn't do. But that was a dumb argument. You cannot victim blame at all. What you want to do is remove your client from that video. So the proper way to do that isn't that they loved each other and they chose this is crazy work. Like they saying they chose this is the craziest shit I ever seen. That was bad of that video. How much do you think the defense attorney's retainer is? Shit, you facing life? Man, those attorneys probably billing him. Shit, I can't even imagine. New York attorneys, they probably billing him maybe for the big guys. This sound crazy. Y'all gonna be like, man, that can't be the fee. But I'm thinking to have the big guys there, he may be paying a couple $1,000s an hour. A couple $1,000s an hour, not to mention all the work that's going on behind the scenes and discovery. Not to mention, if I got to go to court, you get charged for me going to court and me making an appearance. That's in addition to the hourly rate that I would get. You have all these other fees you charge for actually making an appearance. I mean, like he get there. That retainer shit. If it's Diddy, bro, you would have to give me like a $10 million retainer to have myself and my firm. Because once you take on this case, my expectation is, yo, you pay me, everything else is getting put on the back burner, and you are this firm's priority. So we're going to focus all of our assets, resources, private investigators, paralegals, everything is going to be focused on this case. So shit, the cases he can't take now because of this, shit, Diddy probably gave that dude like anywhere from probably 10, $20 million easy. It could be higher than that. That retainer is crazy. But that's the stupidest argument they could have made, is that they chose this. When you got that video, what you want to do is separate your client from that video. That's not done by a victim blame and saying that, hey, Cassie chose this lifestyle. That's fucking wild. What the argument should have been is, hey, Your Honor, that video, well, it was another mistake that we'll talk about, but the argument should have been, Your Honor, that video was old. We don't know the specific facts and circumstances of what went on. My client apologized. He understood that he was wrong. He has since worked on himself. You got to play you got to play the card of that was old. He is much more mature now. That video was, he was in his 40s. He's a 50-something-year-old man now who's more mature now. I don't think that argument is going to fly because of the other shit, but that's the argument that you make. You don't say that, yo, she chose this life because she with me and I'm a bad boy. That's crazy as hell. So I think that was a terrible argument, in my personal opinion. Diddy's darkest hours are coming because of all of the opioids and substances he got used to. He got cold turkey coming soon. We may hit something about that too shortly. Yeah, normally though, when people in jail and they going through that withdrawal, they'll give them some drugs to help them get through those withdrawal systems. Yeah. I already said that absent the video, when everybody seen that Cassie video, it's indicative of R. Kelly's golden 20 years ago. Yeah, that's true. Once it's on video, it's a wrap. Ah, man. Is Diddy's attorney the right one, in my opinion? We're going to talk about that. You can tell from that side what my opinion is. but let me go ahead and get through this, because I also got some stuff I want to explain on RICO, because when we read the indictment, I gotta explain some things. I want to make sure I hit all these notes. To remove Diddy, blah blah blah. Yeah. And the last thing that I think was stupid, and I don't know if I'm assuming he had retained this counsel at the time, but let's backtrack a little bit. The IG apology was stupid as hell. Should have never been done. Moth or something here. It's annoying me. But the IG apology should have never been done. I honestly think that he unilaterally did that on his own. There's no way in hell there's no way in hell a law student would be like, yeah, go apologize for that video on IG. Like, even though we see the video, we can see it's him. I have actually had trials where there was video footage, and I look at that footage and I'm like, it's a little grainy, but yeah, that's him. And we walked out of there with not guilty verdicts. Sometimes the jury don't know what they're seeing. Sometimes the jury. So there's no way I would have advised him to go do that apology. You let the prosecution, the government prove everything. If y'all want to bring that video up, y'all prove that was me in the video. Y'all got to prove that was me. Y'all got to prove that I was there during that time. Prove everything. deny, prove everything, make them work for it. You don't take their obligation to provide facts to prove something away by making some dumbass statement. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about on this video, and then we'll dive into some of the questions and the comment about his attorney. Uh, a few things. The first question I got, and it's funny because my son asked one of these questions. He said, how did Diddy know who are the witnesses in the grand jury indictment? And that's actually a good question. Like, okay, they saying he was interfering with witnesses. A grand jury indictment, the grand jury is secretive. Nobody knows what's going on. How did he know what witnesses to interfere with? It's actually easy, but grand juries aren't the most protected thing. You have media sitting outside, especially if they know, like, oh, they're investigating a celebrity. You have media who's tasked to just sit outside the damn courtroom every day with a camera and see who comes out. So, for example, if a Kid Cudi came out from giving the testimony to grand jury, the media guy's going to be there, be like, yo, who's that? Because, the media cameraman ain't going to know the hell who Kid Cudi is. I will walk right past Kid Cudi. So I know they're not going to know. But so there are ways that not even leaks, but information about who's testifying to the grand jury can get out just from mere observation by the media. But the easy, more realistic answer is this. Let's say, man, I hate to say this phrase, but let's say I'm Sean Combs, right? I stupidly didn't settle the Cassie lawsuit before she filed the actual complaint in court, which I think if he would have did that, we wouldn't even be here right now. But I paid Cassie off within 24 hours because I'm stubborn, and I probably lied to my attorneys and told them none of that stuff happened. Then the video came out later. But because all the civil litigation is coming up, he's actually said, I said it earlier, he asserted that we were aware of some federal investigation because of the civil stuff. So now there's a federal investigation. If I know that there's a federal investigation, how did he know the persons who are witnesses to tamper with? Because he doesn't know the witness list. Probably what he's doing is calling the people who were attending the parties who did the shit that they're alleging he did. That's the only reason. Like, yo, how did he know what witnesses to call? He don't got a fucking list more likely than that. He's like, oh man, they probably looking at the wild shit I did. Let me call all my boys up or everybody who was involved in all the wild shit and talk to them. He's just calling random people who were probably at these events, who probably engaged in this conduct. Unbeknownst to him, I mean, he knows that they could be called as witness, but he doesn't have a list. He's just calling all the people that he partied with. That's how he's hitting up all these witnesses more likely than that. I don't think it's a leak. I don't think it's a media thing. I think it's just, yo, I did some fuck shit. Let me call up all the people who did fuck shit with me. And what do you know? All the people who did the fuck shit with you are going to be the witnesses. So that's normally how it works. The next question is a really good one because my son was even confused. But yesterday, when we went through the indictment and we got to the racketeering RICO charges, it was a big subsection where I talked about arson, kidnapping, and it was all of this California Penal Code this, California Penal Code this, CPC this. And you're thinking, okay, we're in federal court. Why are they citing these state statutes for a RICO charge? I'm a little bit confused. How does it work out? So the question is, for a RICO case, you have to have all of the underlying predicate crimes, such as the arson and kidnapping, which were state charges. Does the prosecution has to prove those crimes beyond a reasonable doubt, or is it a preponderance of the evidence? Essentially, beyond a reasonable doubt is 12, everybody. You got to prove to all the jurors there, the entire 12, that, yo, this person committed this crime. Preponderance of the evidence, not in all, but in most states, it's half plus one. You need the majority of the people to come to the conclusion that, yeah, more likely than that, this happened. Now, this is criminal, so it's always going to be a beyond a reasonable doubt standard. Long story short, they have to prove, and the government has to prove every element of the offense. So, in order for them to get a RICO charge, the three things in general, we summarized it up, that they have to prove is that there was an unlawful agreement, there was an overt act in the furtherance of a conspiracy, and a criminal enterprise. And now remember, a criminal enterprise is a very loose definition. It just so happens that his criminal enterprise is corporate entity, which is wild. But most criminal enterprises, it could be a loose definition of two or more persons who conspire, plan, and do an overt act in the furtherance of a conspiracy. It's a little bit weird though, because most RICO cases, the acts of the enterprise is for money. So you see drug dealers get hit with a RICO, and all of their acts, whether it's a murder, a arson, an embezzlement, witness tampering, it's all directed towards the goal of making more illegal proceeds. Here is a little bit weird because all of the acts of this organization don't appear to have any ties with making money. It's all tied to his proclivities and his trafficking of persons to entertain those proclivities. All right. Now, the question is going to be those state charges that are in there: arson, kidnapping, trafficking. They have to prove them. Essentially, there's a 10-year window. So you have to prove two or more of those underlying offenses occurred within a 10-year window. And I'm gonna just be honest. I think that that is going to be easy because the first offense I would pull out would be, yeah, Cassie asserted that you kidnapped her. Cassie is because she wasn't free to leave, false imprisonment, kidnapping, call it whatever you want to call it. Cassie asserted that she was trafficked for sex. So offense number one will probably be easy to prove if Cassie testifies. That's offense number one within the 10-year period. The other one, let's just say the arson. Kid Cudi is already on record like, yo, my car blew up. The investigation said it was like they're a witness. I mean, like, they essentially only have to prove of all those state charges that were in there, false imprisonment, kidnapping. They only have to prove that two of those offenses occurred within a 10-year window. And they got a shitload of potential victims from all the civil litigation to choose from. So that's kind of how that's kind of how things work with that racketeering charge. There were some state charges in the indictment. That's how those state charges play into that racketeering charge. They have to have criminal enterprise, an overt act in furtherance of a conspiracy, two or more persons, an enterprise within a 10-year window. At a minimum, two criminal acts had occurred within that 10-year window. Those could be any of the state crimes that were named, or if they had subsequent federal crimes as well. But yeah, those were the brunt of my notes. I just wanted to kind of talk through it so we can get through and just figure out, yo, where his attorney messed up at in the argument. This dude's not Pablo Escobar. And I wanted to answer those questions because those were some of the questions that just kind of popped up. Now I want to pivot and we want to go to this question. I want to pull something up real quick so we can take a look. Let's see. I want to pull something up real quick. It was. Damn, I'm trying to find something. Give me 1 second. I know y'all like, man, had this shit together before you start the live, man. I had this stuff that okay. I couldn't because he had a unique last name. Hey, man, this dude last name is wild. You know what? I'm not even going to try to type that. I'm gonna just copy and paste it. Copy. We're gonna go there. That's the right search engine. Let's paste his attorneys in. Name in here. Pull up. All right, we're gonna actually look at his background, and you all tell me y'all thoughts on is this attorney? I mean, any attorney can technically any attorney could handle anything. I mean, I could go to bankruptcy court for you if I needed to. You probably you probably wouldn't want me to go to bankruptcy court for you, but I could. But I just wouldn't choose to. All right, let's pull it up. This is on this law firm's website. All right, so this is Diddy's attorney. Let's take a look at his admissions. New York State Bar, United States District Court. for the Southern and Eastern District of New York. Good. Supreme Court of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. All that's good. To get uh, admitted to the Supreme Court, you actually have to have other attorneys who are admitted vouch for you. It's like going on the dark web or something. So that's dope. All right, Brooklyn School of Law, JD, Moot Court Honor Society. Okay, I did that. American Jurisprudence Award for Outstanding Performance in Trial Advocacy. Member of the coach of the National Trial Advocacy Team. Member of the coach of 3 appellate advocacy teams in national competition. Bachelor's of Arts in Philosophy and Political Science, Connecticut College. Okay, interesting. Cool. All right, out. Let's see. Mark Agnifilo. Mark Agnifilo has won acquittals in many of the most complex and difficult trials in America. In the last several years alone, he secured 3 complete acquittals in cases ranging from assault to international tax fraud to political corruption. Mark has tried more than 200 cases over his 30-year career. Good. And is routinely hired in federal and state court in complex cases. As a former supervisor at the United States Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey, that's always a plus. It's always good to have somebody who can see things from both sides. New Jersey and former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney. Okay, he worked at the state level too. Good. Mark serves as lead trial counsel and on complicated and serious criminal cases, investigations, and financial regulatory matters in U.S. district courts. Okay, financial stuff. Similar backgrounds. He's been doing it a little bit longer throughout the United States and in state courts in New York and New Jersey and in other countries. Generally, Mark handles high-stake criminal cases involving securities, mail, wire, insurance, bankruptcy fraud, money laundering, construction and labor union, Foreign Corruption Practices Act, racketeering and enterprise corruption, international arms dealing. That's a complex area. International arms dealing, complex area. Criminal antitrust, bribery, kickbacks, and criminal tax investigations. Okay, we got some similarities there, but hey, I think the dude is experienced. Mark also represents companies and individuals in Securities and Exchange Commissions and FINRA enforcement proceedings, internal corporate investigations, and grand jury matters. Mark has also represented select clients charged with offenses such as murder, firearms possession, or other similar matters. Finally, Mark has an active international criminal practice. He has represented clients and working with local counsel on matters charged by the governments of Italy, Switzerland, Romania, Bulgaria, Kazakhstan, as well as investigations in several other countries. So the bottom line is, I think the dude is well qualified to do what he's doing. Despite me talking about his mistakes, we all make mistakes. If I have a jury trial, I'm sure somebody can come back in hindsight and pick some shit that I did apart. So, hey, don't take it personal, bro. Just, hey, constructive criticism here. The Pablo Escobar theory was crazy, though. But I think he's competent to do it. I think his firm is competent to do it. I think the bigger issue is I would be at this stage right now, what I would be focusing on is because of course, getting all the discovery, knowing all the witnesses, actually having conversations with your client. Like, yo, dude, I know you don't like telling the truth, but we need you to tell us the truth about everything that's going on because they're going to give us the discovery. We're going to find what evidence they have against you. Just tell us now so we can see the full scope of your exposure, see what we can do to get a favorable outcome for you. That's point number one. I think the other two thing that's really big is I would already start focusing, and I don't know if they specialize this, but they may have someone who does it, but they have law firms and persons out there who specialize in the selection of jury. They have psychologists who have degrees, who are also JDs or licensed attorney, and they look at the psychology of jury selection, jury voir dire, asking all the questions of the jury. That is going to be absolutely pivotal because one, you have to make sure it's a jury of your peers, but you also have to make sure that we're selecting the right group of people. And for instance, when I had jury trials as a defense attorney, if it was like a street shit, like a what I call a blue collar crime, drugs, guns, robbery, something like that. I don't want a bunch of brainiac, nerdy people. I wouldn't want myself on that jury. Like somebody will be talking, they be like, "Oh, I have a master's from Duke University." I'm like, he can go, Your Honor, without cause. We don't want him. But it depends on the case. It depends on the person. It depends on the client and how the client is going to present to a potential jury. But if I was representing somebody in an embezzlement case or something that was really complex, I actually would want someone who has more of a higher formal education because a complex case, especially when you're talking about mail fraud, wire fraud, financial crimes, the pieces that you string together are a little bit more difficult to follow than, oh, they were in a gang, rival guys beefing over a turf. Not saying that persons without degrees can't track, because of course they can track. They're smart, but I generally like to have a juror that kind of understands the nuances of finances and able to find. Like if I'm making an argument for a client in an embezzlement case, if I got the right jury in there, I don't have to break down every aspect of what may be involved with this financial thing because they may already have knowledge. Do you understand the basic fundamentals of financing and or investing to include what the Securities and Exchange Commission does? They're gonna be like, who SEC? I don't know. But some people are like, oh, I'm familiar with the SEC. So, but I think those are where the focus is at. Getting the truth out of your client, taking a look at the discovery, finding out the full scope of his exposure, who all can be called against him as witnesses. Bro, what was on that shit? All of the hard drives in your house, tell me what was on it. And if you have anybody who was on those tapes who that if you gave their name, everybody would know immediately who it is. I need to know who all of those people are immediately. That's kind of where things should start at. But it's going to be interesting. Let me see. It's going to be interesting, but we're going to see where it's at. Let me go ahead. Somebody. Yeah, that's funny. Nah, Diddy ain't gonna call here. Kind of off topic, uh, but I can never understand. Yeah. The hotel video is going to be absolutely unforgettable in the jury mind regarding what happened to Cassie. It blows Diddy character right up out of the water. It's a very hard video to watch. I agree, and that's why I 100% believe that the federal government were the persons who released that video. I said the other day, one, I think the federal government released it because who releases a video to CNN and not TMZ? That's crazy work. Only an old person unfamiliar with what's going on in current, relatively trending society would be like, yes, I got this video. Let's send it to the Bloomberg News. Like, what? So I 100% believe that that was strategically done by the federal government. They're the ones who leaked that video. They had that video. And it proves that one, Diddy just is not credible. He said it didn't happen. It happened. And then he stupidly went on Instagram and apologized for the video. So yeah, I agree with you 100% on that, John. 100%. Will he stay in jail until trial? I'm guessing that this trial is probably going to occur between I would guess between February and April of next year. I don't think that that whole speedy trial doctrine is capped. I mean, depending on the charges, I've had people who were charged with serious crimes as a defense attorney, and that trial didn't occur for 6 months, 8 months. It just depends on how much discovery, how much trial prep. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. The fact that they haven't let him out would be typically what happens, and I said this yesterday. I knew he wasn't. They weren't going to do anything with his bond one day after. Normally, what happens and how bonds work is if I get a bond or my client gets a bond in January and a no bond, oh, you have an armed robbery, no bond. You have a crazy background, no bond. And then 6 months go by. Normally, as time goes by and that person remains in custody, because I would always tell a client, yo, I would tell them, like, yo, this charge, you're going to get a no bond. There's really no point in me even saying anything, but I'm going to do it for you because I'm gonna argue your case. I do all that fucking talking. Your Honor, he has substantial ties to the community. In addition, he does maintain employment. He's active in the church. Moreover, Your Honor, he informed me that he is actually enrolled at the local community college. May I approach? Here's a copy of his current transcripts. He's made. I've go through all of this shit, and the judge will be like, "That's great. You were doing great trying to change yourself. No bond because of your charge." So when you have a no bond, normally the defense attorney will say, "Hey, we're going to put a motion in front of the court to go back and address the bond in 60 or 90 days." Normally, the longer you sit in custody, you don't have no issues in custody. You're not becoming a menace to society, then the court would be more inclined to say, okay, we're actually going to give you a bond, $70 million or whatever. And normally, when they had serious charges, the court would give them a bond. In my instances, is a little bit different because my clients were probably had nowhere near, they were broke as hell. Honestly, let's just keep it a buck. But normally, when it's serious crimes like this, if the judge does give you a bond after a couple of months of being in custody, they normally give you a bond that's high as fuck that you can't make anyway. They're like, okay, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. You're not gonna have no bond. I'm gonna give you a bond of a $200,000 cash bond. And then my client who got a trafficking charge is like, yo, I ain't got $200,000 cash, and I got to prove when I give him the money that the source of the funds are legitimate. So normally, he'll probably get he'll probably, if he goes through if he goes through 3, 4, 5, 6 months with no issue before trial and they revisit the bond, it's actually possible that they can give him a bond. But I'm guessing that they will make that bond something that's going to be a heavy burden for him to bear. You got to keep in mind, he was a billionaire. Now he estimated to have a $700 million net worth. The bond that he wanted was $50 million. He wanted a $50 million bond. And y'all would think like, oh, Diddy got $50 million laying around. No, he had to put up an asset, a home, because his money probably is going to go to the law firm and to keep whatever family and business ties that he still have afloat. So most people keep a small percentage of cash in the bank compared to their net worth. If your net worth is $1 million, you probably not gonna have $100,000 sitting in your fucking savings account. That would actually be stupid to do. So the answer is, I think he's going to sit in there until trial. He will probably get a bond months down the road, but the conditions of the bond may be something that economically he may not be able to bear because of the cost of the litigation that he's getting. Yeah, yeah. He gonna be in there. And like I said, if they do give him one, it's gonna be something that's really crazy. Like have him to sell everything, and he ain't gonna want to do that. Yeah, please, Attorney Dad, can you answer why R. Kelly, Suge Knight, Puff, even Bill Cosby wind up incarcerated when they all they had to do was jump in their latest model Rolls Royce and just ride with angry. That's funny. Uh, I'm just laughing at Attorney Dad. That's hilarious. But I don't know. It's interesting because I think when Suge Knight got locked up, I would actually take him out of this equation because I think Suge Knight, Bill Cosby, Puff Daddy, even R. Kelly, I think their economic situation was a lot different from Suge Knight's when he got locked up. I think Suge was already kind of on struggle street personally. But I don't know. The thing is, like most people, if they don't do the right thing in life, when John Q. Law is on them, they're gonna try to do the right thing in the eyes of the law. So people aren't going to try to run to Cancun and Barbados. That's just not normally what people do. In addition, people do take steps. Like I know Bill Cosby took steps. I remember laughing. Everybody was like, "Oh, Bill Cosby and his wife Camille getting a divorce." And when Bill Cosby got out, which was great work by his attorney, finding that fuck up that the county prosecutors had did previously. I actually did a video on that. But his attorneys did great work to get him out. The first person to come pick him up was his wife Camille. So it looked like he may have like, hey, let's transfer some assets. Let's maybe get a divorce so those assets are specifically yours, so nobody can come back around. But most people aren't going to run. Very rarely, like, when was the last time we heard of like a celebrity? Like the last celebrity who had some kind of wealth who actually ran was like OJ Simpson. Well, what was a celebrity who was charged with a crime or who was under investigation who actually ran after OJ Simpson? Like normally normally the people I see run are people who don't have economic resources. And what they call running is they run from PG County to Southeast DC, or they run from Southeast DC to like their family members in Baltimore or something like that. But normally people aren't running like that. Let's see. His power and position and using his sex party video as bribery, as leverage on celebrities and future stars for contractors, financial gains. I agree. He took that page right out of the J. Edgar. Okay, I appreciate that. I had no clue how to pronounce his name. Agnifilo. Agnifilo. Is that it? Okay. Hey, if I never heard your name said before, counselor. So if you watching this video and wondering why this black guy's on YouTube talking shit about you, constructive criticism, feel free to, hey, I get it all the time. and constructive criticism isn't indicative of your actual work and outcome. All right. Is what I believe be one time comes to the RICO charge. Yep. Is what I believe could be one time comes to the RICO. All of those kidnapping, all of those state charges we read in indictment, arson, whatever, false imprisonment, whatever those state charges are going to be the charges, unless they, supplement the indictment. They can always have a superseding indictment and add more to it, but they got to have at least 2 instances in a 10-year period that they could prove in order for him to eat these racketeering RICO charges. No, defense attorneys want to know the truth. Any defense attorney who don't want to know the truth is crazy. When as a defense attorney, when people in court and they say, "Do you promise to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" and someone says, "I do," they're not talking to us. They talking to somebody else. But no, I always want to know the truth. If I don't know the truth, I can't. If I don't know the truth, I can't figure out how to help you. I can't. There's nothing I can do. If I've been in a situation where, and some clients lie, and that now here's where you have attorneys who are ethical and attorneys who are unethical, because the courts and the bar association have set up certain rules as to how an attorney has to interact with a client if they know that client is going to lie on the stand. Number one, you have to try to dissuade the client from lying. Like, yo, Mr. Combs, I don't think that'll. One, you shouldn't be on the stand testifying at all, because that's going to be an absolute shit show. Don't do it. But the option is the attorney decides strategy. The client decides if they want to testify on that. If you want to go up there and testify, that's on you, but you should not do that. Just sit here and shut up. And if you need to tell me something, write it down in bullet form and slide it to me so I can hear what's going on, just in case I don't want to miss an objection. But the first thing you have to try to do is dissuade your client from lying. If that doesn't work and your client's like, nah, DFD, I'm going up there and I'm a lie and cap and all of that, then I have to go to the judge and ask to get out of the case. Now, you can't be like, Your Honor, this dude about to lie his ass off on the stand. So what you have to say, and all of the attorneys know that the reason you're asking out is because this guy's about to lie. And the line is, Your Honor, I'm asking, Your Honor, Mr. Jenkins is requesting that the court allow him to pursue other counsel, because at this time we are currently at an impasse as to strategy. That's lawyer talk for Your Honor. He's trying to go on the stand with some fuck shit. I gotta follow the rules, and I'm at stage number 2. I couldn't talk him out of it. I tried to dissuade him. He still want to do it. So now I'm asking you to let me out. Depending on where it is, if the case is relatively new, the judge will be like, okay, go get another lawyer. If the case is old, the judge is going to be like, yo, no, DFD, this case has been on for 6 months. We're ready to go to trial. You ready to go to trial, Madam Prosecutor? No, the trial is set for 2 weeks from now. We rolling with it. So now I got this lying-ass dude who wants to testify when I'm telling him he should, and he's about to go to the stand and lie. Typically, courts have outlined, if your client is going to go on the stand and you followed all the other steps and tell a lie, you cannot participate in the lie. Long story short, that means that on direct examination of my client, I can't ask him the type of questions in the manner that I would normally ask. Normally, when I ask a question, whether it's direct or cross-examination, I'm asking a specific, detailed question, and my client knows that I want you to give me the answer to. And once you give me the answer, shut the hell up until I ask the next question. On or about December 14th, 2021, at around 6 p.m., were you around 57 Morset Street, located in Raleigh, North Carolina. Yes, I was. And you were there because you work in the area. Is that correct? Yes. I'm asking those strategic, specified, narrowly tailored questions. Well, if he's going up there to lie, they say I can't participate in it. So I can't ask him those questions, those narrowly tailored, specified questions. So he can only testify in the narrative. So I would call him to the stand. Mr. Smith, go to the stand. I'll be like, and they'll please state your name and where you live, occupation for the record. And my name is James Smith, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Smith, on or about the date of this offense, February 14th, 2022, tell me what happened. And then he started talking, and I just sit back like this. I don't ask no questions. And he just go. And then what happened was he came up and I was like, man, and they just talking, and I'm just sitting there like this. The fact that he's testifying in the narrative, every attorney in the room, like, this dude's full of shit. So, but that's how the rules say we have to approach it. So he's sitting there testifying in the narrative. And then when he's done, after that long 20, 30, 40 hour, they're like, anything else you need to add, Mr. Smith? Then he goes on again, and I just sit there. I try to look like I'm interested. I act like I'm writing something down. All I'm writing down is notes like, this dumbass dude. I told him not to go. Then when he finished, anything else? No, that's it. Then nothing further, Your Honor. I'm done with them at this time. Then I sit down. Then they cross-examine them and burn them the hell up. But that's normally, if you have an ethical attorney, how the ethical attorney should handle it. All right, let's see. But yeah, that's how that normally happens. Oh, okay. Oh, nice. I didn't know that. Good. I don't think his attorney can handle this case properly. The evidence is too overwhelming and conclusive to defend over 50 witnesses, video recordings of the acts themselves, drug evidence found. Well, I think they have the resources to do it. Because also, like, even if I had a small firm of 3 people, right? Let's say I got a small firm of 3 people because I just left a big corporate firm and I'm like, I'm gonna start my own thing. And somebody with a huge bag like Diddy came to represent me. I'm still gonna charge them what I'm charging, but you can actually get outside counsel to supplement your ability to be able to handle this case. Because honestly, if I were a celebrity in a case like this, I would probably rather go to a mid-sized law firm than a larger law firm because I want y'all to put most of y'all resources on my case, and I don't want y'all distracted with no other thing unless it's some other section like bankruptcies or mergers and acquisitions or some shit like that. But y'all whole criminal section, nah. If I'm Diddy, y'all gonna be tied up with my ass, and if y'all don't got enough, y'all can go out and get other attorneys to work on this matter collectively on this case. But resources isn't a thing. You can always bolster your resources by getting contract attorneys and other investigators and administrative support and everything like that. Do you ask the client if they did it, or do you ask them what's all the bad stuff that could be presented against you? I never be like, yo, tell me if you did it or not. I need to know if you did it. Because if you tell me the truth, what happens, it is what it is. I've had clients who just tell you, like, yo, straight up, this is what it is. I had other clients who would tell me a story that I'd be like, really? I'm taking all these notes. And I'd be like, well, first of all, this story sounds like straight bullshit. This story sounds like straight bullshit. And I would go through, and actually, it's been times where I had clients and they weren't in custody, and I would go in the court late when court wasn't in session on like a Friday, 3, 4 o'clock, no court in session. And I would have them sit on the stand, and I would be like, okay, we're going to try this out. You understand this courtroom is empty? You go ahead and serve and act like, or we'll set up a fake courtroom. You act like I'm going to cross examine you. And I would burn their ass up. And I'd be like, your whack ass story you told me, I just eviscerated you, and you just told me that story 15 minutes ago outside. What do you think an attorney is going to do who had months to sit down, talk to witnesses, find every inconsistency in your story, find everything in your background that could potentially impact your credibility? Like, it's just so normally I rarely be like, yeah. Sometimes I have, but generally I don't ask, like, did you do it? Yes or no. I just say, tell me what happened. And I always give this speech. I'm gonna tell y'all how I tell it to the street guys. Because depending on your audience, if I represented like an old ass lady once who caught a trafficking charge. No, she caught some distribution charge. It was some crazy charge, not trafficking because it wasn't that much. And she gave like her medication to another old lady who needed it and didn't have her medication. I was like, this is petty as hell. Um, but so like depending on the audience, it how I present is different. So like my street guys, the goons squad, I would be like, my conversation, I would talk to them how I'm talking to y'all. If it was somebody who was older, they always thought I was like, oh, you look real young. So I would be a little bit over the top professional. But with the street guys, I would be like, look, it's my job to go to war for you. What weapon I go to war with is completely up to you. Whatever information you give me determines the type of caliber of weapon I go to war with. If you give me all the facts so I know what we can anticipate, what we can expect, you're truthful, I can be in the best position to defend you. I'm going to war with artillery. If you tell me some cockamamie, ridiculous ass story that don't even make sense to me, I'm going to war with a water gun. I'm gonna go to war for you regardless. But you got to give me the ammunition to be able to provide the best defense for you possible. Then I would say there's only two people on this earth who you have to tell the truth to. You know who they are, and they would be like your pastor, your spouse, and I'd be like, no, fuck all them people. You don't got to tell none of them the truth ever. There's only two people you got to tell the truth to is your doctor and your attorney. Because if you don't tell them the truth, they can't help you, and it's a life or death situation. You can lie to your insurance company about how you wrecked your car. Nobody gonna give a shit. But no, your doctor and your attorney, you probably need to tell them the truth if it's criminal, especially because yeah, we talking life or death situations here. And that's how I would explain it to him. Let's see. I agree. He looks good on paper. Perhaps he should consider focusing on the paperwork and allowing someone else to take the lead. Yeah. Initially, I ain't gonna lie. Initially, I was like, I don't think this dude know what he doing. but you gotta understand, I'm looking from the outside looking in. I already told y'all when it comes to the attorney shit, I'm arrogant as fuck. And who you want to hire an attorney who's not a little overly confident? I don't want you to be arrogant and no substance, but I want you to be, if this is the line between confidence and arrogance, I want you to be about right here. This is the line where this microphone is confidence and arrogance. I want you to be confident, but I want you to be a little bit on the arrogant side. But that was my initial thought because the initial articles I read, it was like he was a pharma attorney. And I was like, what? Like, that don't make any sense. But then when I looked further into his resume, I was like, oh, well, he has the general knowledge where nothing that could happen in this trial should blindside. Everything else is about how creative, how well he think outside of the box. Combs is screwed as there's a Black Book documentary documenting his bribery list. Videos of his fallout parties was found by the FBI. I agree. I think they have all of that. Yeah, being that this is a federal case, how does the public know that Puff is actually in the cell? Being that federal court can't be recorded. I mean, we just have to take their word for it. I don't think I've never seen anybody. I mean, if they had Bernie Madoff in jail and people were able to confirm that, if they put Bernie Madoff in jail, they're not gonna not put Puff Black ass in jail. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, hey, let's just be honest. Bernie Madoff stole a lot of money from a lot of rich old school white folks. Nobody was happy about that shit. If they put Bernie Madoff in jail, yeah, Puff is gonna be sitting in jail, and he's definitely not gonna be in that federal prison in Colorado that doesn't have a fence. So I think that is good. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that is correct. I looked that up as well. Same prison as Epstein was in. My thing is, I think they need to put him in ASSEG. He needs to be segregated. You cannot put this dude in general population. Russell Simmons, liquidate and relocate. That's all I gotta say. But I think they need to put Puff in ASSEG. He needs to be segregated. He shouldn't be in general population. Um, One, there's a safety concern, even though I think he has enough resources to where he can actually buy safety temporarily from the goon squad. But yeah, I think if I were the prosecutor, I would actually want him in some sort of protective custody, as segregated. Now, just because you're in segregation, I don't mean, oh, you can't get touched. I mean, you can get touched. Anybody can get touched, but I still feel like they thought they were Hugh Hefner, but it's different now. Yeah, man, that stuff you could do back in the 80s and the 90s, man, that shit is crazy. You can't do that. The wildest part to me is all this was done over bad decisions related to your groin area. That's wild. It wasn't like a RICO case for money and drugs. I'm like, okay, I get it. But I'm like, bro, this was all groin crimes. That's crazy work. Diddy was gonna slip and slide his head all the way to ball that hole. Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Let's see. For the first 40 years of my life, I thought that the legal system itself was really in itself noble, prosecution wise. When it's all said and done, I see why you wouldn't want the real truth to be known. Yeah, the legal system is like every other system, man. It's every other system is manipulation, it's gamesmanship, it's biases. I mean, it's so many things that the wheels of justice turn, but how they turn is up to a bunch of external factors. Everybody's not treated fairly. There's so many times I remember sitting in court once. Hey, my one of my good friends, we were in court, and this guy wasn't even a client. And I remember sitting in court, and I seen a younger white guy go up, and it was probation court, so it was easy. It was light. It was like a Friday probation court. People just go up. Oh, I did what I needed to do. I'm off probation, or I'm still on probation, but I'm doing good. I'm asking the court to let me off early. You're just asking for some shit that you may or may not deserve. And this white guy goes up with no attorney. He owed money on this probation because it costs to be on probation. You got to pay fees and all those costs. And, you know, his situation, the judge was like, you know what? We're going to terminate his probation and waive his fees. And I'm like, damn, they waived his fees. And he left out. Young white guy, real clean cut, looked like he was maybe mid-20s, college age, something like that. They leave out. Similar charges. Immediately after him, I'm standing on the side, me and my boy, because we got cases in there. None of these guys are our clients. And I see an older black guy get up. He looked disheveled, gray, no haircut, dressed in ragtag kind of clothes. He got like a sleuth foot, like one foot is bigger than the other. So he walking with a limp and dragging the other foot. And I'm just sitting there watching. And like literally as soon as he walked up, like me and him both looked at each other. We both looked at each other like, oh God, this is not gonna go well. And we sitting there listening to the facts. It's literally the exact same situation that just happened with the younger white guy who walked out. And the judge immediately started grilling this guy. And like I'd reach over and I'm like, man, this dude about to get. I felt so bad in that instant. That guy wasn't even my client. I just went up there and was like, Your Honor, I'm gonna represent him for limited purposes, just for purposes of today. And afterward, I remember going back to the office and I was like, assign me this dude's case because this dude about to get railroaded. So yeah, the justice system isn't always fair. I mean, it's terrible, but that's just kind of how it is. You know what I mean? It's fucked up. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah. I bet Diddy wants to take the stand. Narcissists believe they can always. Yeah, of course. Of course. The only people who think they are the best fucking liars and they got the gift of persuasion and gab want to go on the fucking stand. Like it is no way this dude should get on the stand and testify about anything. But inside, like, hey, sometimes we like looking at car accidents. You drive by and be like, damn, that shit is fucked up. I hope they okay. I don't want to. Legally he shouldn't go on the stand, but oh please, I hope he does go on the stand because that's gonna be some TV for your ass. I'm gonna be live. I'm gonna take off of my real job to live cover that shit. If he go on the stand, that's gonna be an absolute. They're gonna tear his ass up. It's gonna be terrible. Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right. Do you think they might incorporate any information regarding Diddy's ex-wife Kim Porter into the case? Is it possible? I s- I seriously doubt it. Typically, how it works, because I mean, his lawyers are going to try to challenge everything as they should. His lawyers should challenge everything, and he should challenge. They should challenge everything, whether or not there's a really, really viable. It could be this much of an argument for a dismissal, you need to make that shit, even though it's only a 20% chance. So they're going to try to get everything dismissed outright. Then they're going to try to get certain charges dismissed. Then after that point, they're going to have pre-trial motions related to what evidence is admissible and isn't admissible. So typically, all evidence, if hey, this guy's paying me a bag, I'm challenging every fucking thing. I'm going to see if there's a way I can challenge the search warrant, the scope of the search warrant, the evidence that was seized. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way I can challenge everything. We're going to go through this meticulously, step by step, before we get to the trial. But when it comes to evidence, there's certain ways that certain evidence can come in. So the evidence has to be probative. That means that the evidence is related to what we're dealing with right now. So something related to Kim Porter, the probative value of that evidence relating to these charges is going to be hard. Now, the way they could get it in, though, is if the defense opens the door, and that's with credibility evidence. So evidence of the crime is one thing. Let's set that over here. This evidence shows that you've committed or that you didn't commit this crime that you're charged with. That's the evidence category here. Over here, we have evidence that deals with a person's credibility. Typically, the prosecution cannot attack a person's credibility until they open the door. So if the argument is, hey, Diddy's a violent man and he has a propensity for violence, and as a defense attorney, I present evidence that shows, hey, Diddy isn't a violence. He doesn't have a propensity for violence. He's credible. He got treatment. So let's say I bring in his a person who's, let's say he was going to like some type of Alcoholics Anonymous for people who have, whether it's gambling problems or substance abuse problems. And this person is the leader. Hey, I lead the group sessions, and Mr. Combs have been coming into these sessions for so long, and I can see his improvement. He actually got a chip where he went 8 months with completely being sober, and we celebrated it. Well, that evidence can come in because the defense is introducing it to bolster up his credibility, to show that he doesn't have a propensity for violence. But once they open the door, now the prosecution can attack his credibility. So now is when you can see outside evidence coming in, not to prove or disprove that this crime occurred, but outside evidence can come in to disprove that Mr. Combs is a peaceful man. Mr. Combs is a nonviolent man. Mr. Combs. So that's kind of the only way I can see that outside stuff coming in related to, well, no, Mr. Combs isn't violent because he's got all of this treatment. The defense just opened the door. Now, as the prosecutor, I'm glad you opened that door, because you're saying that he's nonviolent. I have people who've witnessed violence act firsthand, and we're going to introduce that evidence, not to prove that he did the crime, but to prove that your contention that he's nonviolent is bullshit. So that's how I think that evidence could potentially come in. But it's going to be an interesting one. This is actually, because it's going to trial. You think he's going to take a plea? Taking a plea when the minimum sentence you're looking at is 15 years, and did he 56? Fuck no, he not doing that. His ego not going to let him take a plea. Honestly, we'll see what the discovery pulls up. But when you're looking at 15 years to life, like 15 years to life, do you want to roll that on the dice? Because most judges, I told y'all this before, most judges, if you have a legitimate basis for a trial and you lose, most judges won't rake you over the coals. Like, okay, the facts in this case could go either way, or there's a nuanced issue of the law that we have to have motions about pre-trial that could impact the actual trial itself. If you have a reasonable basis for like kind of moving forward towards trial, most judges like, yo, this is actually a close case. Most judges won't max you out, because once you go to trial, your sentence is completely at the whim of the judge. Do you think, let's say he went to trial with the judges who did his first appearances, they probably would have he would have needed some baby oil with the reaming that they would have gave him. So that's a big risk going to trial because now your sentence is completely up to the judge. He could give you the minimum, he could give you the maximum. So they're going to get a plea deal. I don't think he's going to take a plea deal. If he does, I would be shocked. I would be shocked. But a lot of times that's kind of in his best interest because he has no leverage for a plea deal. Because the sad thing is, whoever he has on video doing some type of wrongdoing is irrelevant because 99.9% of the time, Sean Combs is a bigger fish than any of them. Literally, the only way if I was a prosecutor that I would give a fuck about anything that he has to say for purposes of coming up with a plea deal that's really going to be favorable to him. Do you got something on anybody who's higher up than you? Because I think you're probably the head honcho in all of this. Like, and who would be higher than Diddy? Like no, nobody care about I don't give a shit about what Cuba Gooding Jr. may or may not have done. No, I don't care about what Stevie J may or may not have done on video. Man, I could care less. Like unless you talking like Hove, hey, just using this as a hypothetical, Hove, don't come after me. Unless you talk about like Jay-Z or like a politician, like, yo, you was partying with Bill Clinton or something like that. I don't want to hear it. So because he's the biggest fish, I think, in the pond, so to speak. All right, let's see. Scroll down. Let's see. I think his lawyer is working with what he has. I think Diddy has made it challenging contacting the witnesses and possibly the video. I agree. You can only work with what you got. And I agree that just what we know is not looking favorable. I mean, maybe he would have an argument if his credibility wasn't completely destroyed from that video. But literally, the release of that video was so strategic and beautiful by the government, I'm assuming, because they essentially tainted the entire jury pool. They essentially tainted the entire jury pool that, yo, this dude is a liar and this is the type of monster that he is. Yeah. All right. John Q. Probative evidence like the fight Diddy had with Kim Porter when she got a black eye in the hotel video regarding what happened to Cassie. It goes to his credibility. Right, right, right. Yeah, that's that's probative as it relates to his credibility. So evidence category A is evidence to prove or disprove what he's charged with. Evidence category B is going to be if the defense opened the door because they try to bolster up his propensity for peacefulness and his change and his nonviolent demeanor. Once they open the door to credibility, anything to attack his credibility is fair game. I wouldn't even do that. Like, I would not. I wouldn't do it. This would be this literally the strategic approach for trial that needs to happen here is we're not putting you on the stand. We're not going to try to bolster up your credibility in any way. They got to get on there and prove their case. If Kid Cudi says you blew up his car, and I think that's actually arguable. Like, do y'all actually see him throw a Molotov cocktail? Do you have a direct witness, non third party, non hearsay, who said, yeah, Diddy specifically told me on this date to do it? Like, that arson charge is one of the charges that they would need to prove that RICO. Yeah, Kid Cudi said his car blew up in the driveway, but did you actually see Diddy standing on top of the car with a knife cutting the roof and throwing a Molotov cocktail in? Probably not, bro. So, that's kind of what it's going to be. Yeah. Is it likely that more charges for Diddy will come as others saying? I think so. I think more charges will come. It'll probably be more counts of the same though. I don't think it'll be like I'd be shocked to be like, oh, Diddy got a money laundering charge because he was laundering money for I don't see anything like that, but it'll probably be additional counts added that would be consistent with what we've already seen on the traffic and prostitution side of the game. The only thing I think that's going to be interesting now is because and this is a random thing that's off and if y'all ever seen it, never seen it, y'all should look it up. it's a documentary called Murder Rap. It's on YouTube. It was on Netflix at one point, but it's about a retired detective named Greg Kading who essentially solved Biggie's and Tupac's murder like I don't know a decade and a half ago before we already knew what it was, right? And it was interesting because it was the most that documentary. I love watching documentary. I don't like watching crime doc. I don't like watching crime shows because that shit be too fake. I don't like watching crime shows, court shows, and like army shows because that shit that I actually did. So I'd be like, man, that's not even how I look if you shoot somebody. You know what I mean? But that documentary, Murder Rap, where Greg Kading did the investigation to find out what happened in the Biggie and the Tupac murder. It was some of the most beautiful investigative work that I've ever seen in my life. And he had everybody wrapped up. He had it set up to a point where they were at a position to have undercovers go and talk to people to potentially try to incriminate Sean Combs into these homicides. But according to Greg Kading, he said that the bosses were like, nah, we're not going to touch this. We're going to leave it alone. We got what we needed to get out of it. But it is actually a great documentary to watch. But I don't think any new charges or new counts, I don't think any new counts will be added outside of what we've already seen and identified as the norm. Um, that's a weird situation. That's like a family thing, right? Um, it's like I don't know, and I'm not familiar with the relationship that Quincy Jr. had with his actual father. Quincy actually had with his actual father, right? It's a strange dynamic there though. They may have a good relationship for all I know. What I'll tell you is I'll analogize it, and this is gonna sound wild. Y'all gonna be like, yo, this dude, how you analogizing this with Saddam Hussein's son, right? But when I was in Iraq, Saddam Hussein's grandson, that motherfucker was crazy. He was a little kid, but he gave military forces hell when they had him cornered into a compound. I mean, that little kid was going from one place shooting, going for another place shooting, but he was a kid. Like, I mean, but he was like, you would have thought it was 20 soldiers in there the way artillery rounds and things was coming out of that compound. But I bring up this story to say that children generally are impressionable, right? If Saddam Hussein was the unchallenged dictator of Iraq for decades, right? His children grew up knowing him as the unchallenged dictator for decades. His grandsons grew up knowing him as the unchallenged dictator for decades. And I could tell y'all stories on another live stream of some of the things that I know people who have witnessed firsthand that were done by, specifically Saddam's sons. But if you grow up in an environment where you see power, privilege used in a negative way, it's a very strong possibility that you are going to adopt those principles because you have a flawed view of what is morally right. You know what I mean? So I do think that I'm not going to say he's brainwashed because as we get older, we kind of and should know what's right from wrong, but there is some component of influence on young children when they are around power and privilege and they may have seen and may see instances of people being treated like shit or using your wealth or your money or your control for nefarious purposes. So, I mean, there could be some things uh, to that. You know what I mean? There could be some things to that, in my personal opinion. It's interesting though. We're going to see what it is. I'm sure that the women who were shot at the New York nightclub when Diddy was with J Lo think and got it. Yeah, but that's a different situation though, because she just came out. She clearly got paid off, right? Because now she came out like it wasn't Sean, it was Diddy. I saw him with the firearm. I'm like, bro, why didn't you say that then? Likely because she probably got some type of payola. It's fucked up that Sean had to do that. Even though, hey, shout out to Sean, one of my favorite artists, and shout out for him for making the best out of a fucked up situation. He a politician now, but yeah, like, but that's still potentially evidence that can come in that's probative, that's going to attack his character. Like, no, he does the right thing. No, he doesn't do the right thing because this woman is testifying that he actually the one who shot me in the club. You know what I mean? And that's not going to come in as evidence that he actually shot her, but it's going to come in as evidence that he has a propensity as a character for violence and for trying to manipulate situation and tamper with witnesses and evidence and things like that. This shit is indicative of Tiffany's attorney, the Gala law firm Bowser, from defending Tiffany Henyard. He knew she was corrupt. Hey, corrupt people need representation too, right? That's how the law works. My mother used to always ask me, like, "Oh, how could you represent this person? I saw you doing the first appearance for this guy," and I'm like, everybody needs representation. Now, if the attorney is shady in that, that's a completely different story. But everybody needs representation. Yeah, comparable story. Anna and the king of Sion, believed that he was the center of the world without understanding how big the world really was. I agree completely. You live in a bubble, and sometimes when you live in that bubble, you have a jaded view of what life is. You have a jaded view of what you can and can't get away with, which is crazy that Diddy was outside of the bubble and then put himself in the bubble and appears to believe he became conditioned to the own bubble he created, even though he knew how the world was. That's wild. Therefore, children of powerful men are unaware of the abuse of power, as they know no difference until otherwise expanded to see beyond their eyes. I agree, and we see one of his sons have a civil lawsuit from allegations that occurred on the yacht. One of his sons, I mean, what type of hubris and ego is it? One of his sons wrote a diss song talking shit to the feds immediately after the search was done, essentially making in the song saying that, "Oh, you didn't know we bought the house right beside us." Like, what? Like, son, one, you aren't popping like that, King Combs. Let's just keep it honest. But two, don't do this, son. I'm like, if I was him, I'd be like, dude, do not release that song. Shut the fuck up. It's crazy, but they have no his they you can see in that instance, his son had no ability to be an objective observer as to what was going on with his father and his family, and that's detrimental to his case. I agree. Yo, but that's it for this video. Hey, I wanted to be, hindsight is 2020, but I definitely saw some mistakes, some things that shouldn't have been made. Hopefully that cleared up any questions. If y'all got any questions on any of this stuff, y'all know how to contact me, official debt-free dad at Gmail. I'm on IG under that same handle. Shoot your questions. I actually got a good live that I'm probably going to do this Friday. Someone reached out to me regarding some information that was obtained related to Tiffany Henyard, and it's actually going to be interesting. We're going to dive into that. I definitely appreciate all of y'all though for tuning in. Yeah. Do you ever invite folks to speak with you on panels sometimes? You should have an open panel Q&A sometimes. I thought about doing that. I, I have thought about doing that. I wouldn't be opposed to doing it because now I'm just getting started and actually having guests on the show. I wouldn't be opposed to doing it. I just have to think of how I want to set up the parameters of doing it. But I have thought about dropping the link. Uh, yeah, I agree. They showed up like some goons. I agree. Yep. But it is something that I'm thinking about doing in the future, in the relatively near future. I'll probably put up a link, but it probably will be just an audio thing, more of a call-in style where I'll put up a link in the chat. And, hey, open it up for questions. And if you want to ask me questions, we can do it. I would like to do the video, but I'm real skeptical of videos because I've seen so many channels do a Q&A and they put up a video and somebody post the ass on the screen, and next thing you know, my channel shut down. And I'm like, man, I just started this YouTube thing. Don't shut me down. So I think I will do one. I'll probably try out a sample one weekend. It'll probably be sometime in late October or November, though, unless something juicy just pop off and we got to dive into it. But right now, end of the fiscal year is just a busy ass time for me. So it'll probably be next month that I'll explore. But I'm definitely an option. Thanks for saying that, because it just reaffirmed a thought that I had wanted to do before. So Justin Bieber is probably sleeping well. Yo, shout out to y'all, everybody in the chat. I love y'all. Y'all be safe. Take care. Be blessed. Peace.